Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something that I have found that really helps me to save time and also eliminate some stress in the area of feeling like we just have this ever mounting to-do list. And then if you're like me, sometimes you can get sidetracked and lose focus, and then you don't even actually accomplish what you had on your to-do list to do. And so I just want to share a little bit of something that I have found, a tool that really helps me to stay focused and to stay productive. So let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to the Special Kind of Motherhood podcast. This podcast is for moms who are parenting differently abled children. Maybe you desire to switch to a more natural lifestyle to improve your family's health, but you have no idea where to start. You're longing for more routines and time, but every time you try to implement those tips that you've spent hours researching, you realize that they don't work for your family dynamics. Hi, I'm Ashley. In this podcast, we will focus on implementing routines, switching to a more natural lifestyle, and uprooting those old mindsets that are keeping you stuck, so that you can plant yourself firmly in the truth that Jesus offers you. Our focus will be on creating small, customizable changes that will build upon one another over time to create real impact in your life. If you want to hear from a mama who has been raising several children with special needs and who knows how important it is to do this in a way that's sustainable and that doesn't add to your overwhelm, then this is the podcast for you. Pop in those earbuds, reheat that coffee for the third time, and let's go.
Hey mama, do you feel like you are constantly struggling with negative thoughts, or you have this desire to pray scripture over your family and to fill your mind with good and godly things, but you just feel like you don't know where to start? You feel like you don't have the time to sit down and really decide what it is that you want to pray over your family and fill your heart and your mind with? Well, I want to help you out with that. I have a free guide that is my Bible-based declarations that I use on a daily basis to fill my heart and my mind with scripture, to speak truth over my family. I have in the show notes below a link where you can sign up to get your own scripture-based declarations that's going to give you a starting place for making this consistent effort to think on the good and godly things in your life, and also to begin memorizing and praying scripture over your family. So go ahead and grab that on the link below in the show notes, and I hope you enjoy it. So if you're anything like me, you have this extremely long to-do list and you feel like you are constantly multitasking, trying to take care of many things at once. And especially in the area, what I have found to be true when it comes to parenting our differently abled children. And then if you're like me and you're home with your kids all the time, if you're homeschooling your kids, if your kids are small and so they're just with you all the time, whatever the situation may be, a lot of times it can be really hard to stick to a rigid schedule, or to stick to, I like to keep a general routine, but to say that I have a schedule, I would say it's just not extremely feasible, because in my house every day is different. And it may be that a child is struggling that day, and so I had something planned, and then I'm having to spend a lot of focused time working with that child. Or it may be a day where we had planned to do certain things for school, but everyone's focus is just kind of out the window, and so we don't stick with that plan. Or maybe it's a day where everyone is really focused and engaged, so we do extra school. I just have found, for my kids specifically, I have to be pretty fluid. And while I think there are so many wonderful tools out there for people as far as productivity and creating schedules and time blocking, a lot of times it just doesn't really work for family dynamics where you have children who have extra needs and that maybe are not able, like you just have stuff that comes up, or you have extra challenges, and it can just be extremely hard to stick to a set schedule. And that can also feel really defeating whenever you desire to stick to a schedule and then you actually can't do it. So I like to keep kind of a routine in general, or certain tasks that I want to get done, but keep it pretty fluid. And a way that I have found to help myself to still feel like I'm being productive, but also not feeling like I have to be locked into this schedule or else I'm a failure, is to actually batch my tasks. And so I have found that's been extremely helpful for me in the area of being able to focus on one thing and just kind of see it through instead of getting distracted by the tons of other little things that inevitably pop up in my day. I'm sure most of you have heard of this. You've probably even tried it or thought about trying it, or you do it and you think it's wonderful. But I just wanted to share about it. And if you don't know what batching is, it's just basically grouping tasks that are very similar together into one period of time. So an example of this would be if you're cooking meals for the week, maybe you would batch them and do enough for like 3 days at a time instead of cooking meals every single night. That would be an example of batching a task. The great thing about this is the fact that your brain actually works best when you're focusing on one thing at a time. And I know for me specifically, my brain absolutely works best whenever I'm focusing on one thing at a time. Whenever I get too many things going at once, I just notice that my ability to do them well greatly decreases. And so for me, it's also about working with my own brain and my own weaknesses and realizing that while, yes, I can multitask, it really actually does not end up benefiting me in the long run to do a lot of multitasking. And I think that the problem with it, for me at least, is that it feels really productive in the moment because you feel like you're taking care of so many things at once. But what I've had to do is to just take a very honest look at what happens whenever I do a lot at once. And what actually ends up happening is I typically end up feeling overwhelmed, which is not how I want to live my life on a daily basis. And so for me, it has actually been about finding ways to batch the things that I need to get done in my home on a consistent basis. And then really what ends up happening is it just kind of streamlines the whole process and eliminates a lot of stress and overwhelm for me, which if you're like me, that's exactly what you want in your life. And on top of that, it does tend to typically help me to feel like I can just have a little bit more wiggle room in my schedule whenever I've taken care of something, for several days worth of time. It just gives me that flexibility that I need often if I have a child who's struggling that day, or we just want to spend a little extra time focusing on something else. And I don't feel like I am stuck to this, like, I have to clean the bathrooms on Monday. I have to mop the floors on Tuesday. Whatever it is, it just gives me that flexibility, which I really value in my life because I have understood how needed it is with my family dynamics. And I'm sure, honestly, you're probably the same way. And there are actually a lot of benefits to batching the different things that you need to get done. And so some of those are the fact that it will actually increase your focus and your productivity. And then it has also been shown to reduce stress and to also, what I have found for me personally is that it helps me to stay organized more and just kind of feel like I'm staying on top of things more. And it will also, like I said earlier, help you to decrease on that multitasking, which really isn't that effective in the first place. And it will also help us to prioritize what actually needs to get done and then kind of look at our schedule and realize what needs done and then how frequently does it actually need to be done. So it's just great about helping you to really take a honest look at what it is that you do need to get done, what you don't need to get done, and how important is that actually that you get it done. And I think this can look so different for each of us because, like I said, we have to look at our specific schedule to see what it is that would make the most momentum in our daily life that if we were to choose to batch those tasks. But I want to give some examples of things that I do just on a weekly basis. One of those would be cleaning. And like I've mentioned before, in actually episode 8 is my 1 hour clean that my husband and I will do together. And that is a great way to batch certain cleaning tasks that you don't want to have to keep that mental space for in your mind of having to do it on a daily basis. I love that. It just creates a bit more of a streamlined, it eliminates stress. It just is so much easier to take care of it that way. Another thing would be picking out clothes for the week for my kids, and I talk about that in episode 12. And that just makes it where mornings are less stressful. You're not stressed out about, do we have clean clothes? We're scrambling around trying to get everyone dressed. This obviously works specifically really well if you are still picking out your kids' clothes, but you can also include your kids in this process, which I do talk about in that episode 12 as well. And then another thing is for cooking. And I do quite a bit of batch stuff when it comes to cooking just because it does help to save time. So, I will get quite a bit of ground beef and then I will actually just brown it all at once in my Instant Pot and I will stick it in the freezer and pull it out whenever I need some kind of quick meal. Like if I want to make some kind of pasta, it's super fast to just pull that out. If I want to make some kind of Mexican dish like tacos or something, it gives me a very quick meal if I have not planned ahead of time and we need something to eat. It's a very fast solution. I'm not having to wait for it to thaw out forever and then cook it. It's already cooked and ready to go. Another example of this would be like I will make my kids some gluten-free cookies and I will actually just quadruple the recipe. and then I will put them out on cookie sheets and I will freeze them before they're baked. And then I just throw them all into a freezer bag, and then I can just pull them out as they want them. It's, again, a quick snack that I've already put the time in up front to take care of. And then when we're in a hurry, I can just quickly grab that, throw them in the oven, and then they have something that they can enjoy. My kids also eat like a protein granola bar, basically, that we make for them. And I have frequently done this where I will actually just go ahead and get all the stuff out. If I'm already making the protein bars for them anyways, I will just go ahead and make enough for like 3 or 4 days worth. And that will save me time from having to do it, every few days. Instead, I'm just doing it all at once while I already have the mess, already have the supplies out, and then we're good for several days. I don't have to think about it again for several days. My thing is that I actually love to do things across the board, no matter what, to take care of something so I don't have to think about it again for however long, several days, a week, a month, I don't care. If I can just take that off of my mind and off of my mental load, that's my goal, always. It's what I'm always looking for. I will also do it where, I will make a meal, and often, not all the time, but often I will double the meal. If it's something that I know will freeze well, then I'll double it and then I'll freeze part of it. Or I will make extra and we will have those leftovers. So my husband has like a quick lunch he can grab for the week. We've also done it where we have batch cooked stuff on the weekend so that we have stuff ready to go for the week, for leftovers, for lunches and things like that. I've also done it where we will do this with breakfast foods. Like I'll make breakfast casserole. I do this consistently for the week. We have food for the week that way. Or I will make up, I don't eat these because I don't eat gluten, but I will make up like breakfast burritos for my husband. And I will make enough to last for a long time, and then just throw them in the freezer, and he can pull them out and throw them in the air fryer in order to heat them up. It's just finding these different ways. Honestly, with food, there's more than that. I should probably just do an entire podcast episode on this topic because I do it quite a lot because we eat from home. We don't eat out a lot. We hardly ever eat out for that matter. We're here all the time other than my husband, but he is typically packing leftovers. So we're eating from our home all the time. So it could possibly take up a very large amount of time if I did not find these ways to batch cook and to save time. Another area that I do this in is also in the area of working. And so this would be, for instance, like creating podcast episodes. What I have found that actually works the best for me, and it's something that I don't always consistently get to do, but it's something I'm working towards, is, again, to do it in batches. So one day or one working time, I would focus solely on recording. And then another working time, I would focus on editing all of those episodes that I recorded. And then a following time, I would focus on like putting in my intro and outro and creating show notes and all of that stuff. I have done it where I just create episodes as I go for each week. And then I've also done it in this area of batching. And it is just so much easier when you do it in the area of batching because your mind and your brain is already in that mode of like recording or of editing. And so you're not jumping back and forth from thing to thing, which is the same way with like cleaning the house. So if you're in that mode of we're cleaning, we're having focused cleaning time, you're not having to jump back and forth as much of like, okay, well, I'm trying to take care of laundry, but I'm also trying to help a child with a school thing. And then I have another child in here who's very upset and having a hard day. It's just very hard to be productive when you're bouncing around like that. And I'm not saying that it's never going to happen because the reality is if you're home with your kids all the time and you have these children who have these extra needs, I mean, it is going to happen. It just, like I said earlier, we have to have that flexibility. But I feel like if we can kind of work ahead by batching stuff, it just gives us a little bit more freedom to have that flexibility without the stress. And just to be able to take care of the stuff we need to take care of, but doing it in a way that is going to actually make the most out of the time that we're spending on those tasks. And the other thing is with so many of these things, we are already designating time for the task anyways. So for me, it just makes the most sense for me to actually just spend a little extra focused time on that task and then actually save myself some time later on. That's going to help me to feel more ahead, to feel more prepared. And that's also going to help to lower my stress about everything that needs to get done about my to-do list. So just overall, it works extremely well for our family and our family dynamic. And here are some tips just for getting started on batching. I would say the first thing for me would be to actually start taking an inventory and paying attention to the things that you are having to do on a consistent basis. So like the things I've mentioned, cleaning, cooking, if you have any kind of work you're doing, all of those different things. Think about your week and what is it that you're either having to do on a weekly basis that you could possibly shift to a monthly basis, or something that you're doing on a daily basis that you could work on switching that to more of a weekly basis, or even if it has to be every few days, just paying attention to these different areas that really do actually consume a lot of your time and mental space that you find yourself doing over and over again. And then after that, I would look at those things, I would actually write them down and then group the like ones together. So create a column like these are all the cleaning things that I'm doing. These are all the work things I'm doing. These are all the cooking tasks that I'm doing. And just start to look at them and see what could you put together, what would make the most sense to work on at the same time, what is there that you could possibly do more of when you're already doing that task anyways to create a little bit more space in between the time you would have to do it again. And then just kind of break down how could I actually go about batching these tasks? How could I decide to create more time for myself, less overwhelm in these areas? And then what I would say is pick one of those groups and just start there. Start working through, maybe it's not the entire group, but maybe something I think of for me is that my kids love yogurt. So if I make yogurt, I'm going to make enough to last for an entire week so I don't have to make it again. If I know that I need to do some kind of prep for their school stuff, I want to do all of that at the beginning of the week and have it done and ready to go for the week. Just getting that rhythm, just becoming aware of what's going on, trying to figure out some kind of rhythm to take care of it, and then being intentional about grouping like things together, trying to double task where you can, and then just kind of start building from there. It has taken me several years to get to the point of batching all of these different things. And so I think, don't expect yourself to be able to do it all at once. But if you could start with one thing and that would save you some time, that would decrease your overwhelm, then you're going to be able to have capacity to do more moving forward. And then you'll kind of notice that snowball effect where now that you're having less stress, more time, then you can start batching other things and it will just build on itself over time. I would love to have you share with me if there are different things that you actually do already with batching. What are those things? Are there different things in your home that you have figured out how to double what you're already doing at that time in order to create more time in between you when you have to do it again? I would love to hear from you on how this is working for you in your home or what you plan to start doing in your home. You're welcome to come find me over on Facebook or Instagram or email me. All of that is in the show notes below, and I will see you back next week. Have a great weekend.
Hey, before you go, if you found value in today's episode or you learned something new, would you take a minute to share with someone else that you know would be blessed by it? I would also love it if you would leave me a review. This lets me know that you're enjoying the show, and I love hearing from you. You can connect with me further over on Facebook or Instagram. Until next time, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, and be constantly in prayer. Romans 12:12.